All right, I am so excited about today's conversation with Theophan McKenzie. We are going to be talking about smart, systematic selling. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being our guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about smart systematic selling too. S3 for short. But yeah, thanks for
S3.
having me.
Indeed. How I met you was in a lawyers only Facebook group.
Yeah.
There's a few of them that are out there that you and I are members of, and the conversation around sales came up, and
Yeah.
there must have been 60 law firms and attorneys like this. Your name was the only name I saw in the chat of like talking about the results that you produce, why they need to come to you, why they need to just not even just go right now to your boot camp, right, and hire you. I would love for you to talk to us, because you and I, before we started recording, we're like, well, sales is a really dirty word in the legal space.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I was actually, so as far as that Facebook group is concerned, I was very thankful and grateful to get in. Molly, I've got to tell you, that group popped up on my Facebook feed and I was like, oh, I should see if I can get into this group. And so I clicked on the little button to join, and then it asks like, are you an attorney? And I was like, no, I'm not even going to fill this out because I'm not. They're not going to let me
Yes.
in. And so I just closed it and went away. And then I don't know, like 20, 30 minutes later, I got approved. And I was like, hey, that is so cool. And then I realized that the admin of that group was familiar with some intake professional training that we had
Yeah.
done. And I think she recognized me and was like, oh, I've heard about that guy, and let me in. I was like, hey, this is great. So I don't try to push my sales training in that group. I just want to be there as a resource to answer
And you
questions. And
are.
right,
You
well,
are.
and I don't want to be that guy. You know who let this guy in? So I just try to be a resource.
And our attorneys are high fact finders that are listening. So it's Regina's group, right? Is
It
it
is, yeah, the Lawyer on the Beach group.
Lawyer on the Beach? So you all hear me talk about this group lately on my podcast, because it is so fantastic and amazing, such abundant mentality. And
Yeah.
Regina, who runs the group, she is phenomenal,
Mhm.
absolutely just a value provider.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who is not in that group, you must get in that group, because for multiple reasons, resources in regards to practice management, sales, what have you, but also for you people that work 7 days a week and don't take a vacation and think you need to be chained to your desk. You got to see the new age of lawyering and what some phenomenal attorneys are doing there. It's inspiring as hell.
Yeah, it's a really good group. A lot of good information for attorneys that are just starting out or for attorneys that have been around for a long time. So yeah, so I was able to get into the group, which was fantastic. And yeah, yeah,
All
it's
right.
good.
Give us your backstory.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I was just sharing with you. I've been in sales for 20 plus years at this point, and when I first started out, way back when, I went to work as an account executive for a collection agency in Alaska, of all places.
Oh.
So, and I was explaining to you like collection agency, but I was an account executive. So no leather chaps, no baseball bat, nothing like that. My responsibility was to go out and meet with office managers at doctors' offices and retail establishments and get them to turn over their delinquent accounts and bounce checks to the agency that I represented. And so that's where I kind of got started in sales. And then over the years, I've done outside sales, inside sales, route sales. I've been a sales supervisor, sales manager. I've been the VP of sales. So I can build out sales playbooks, work on commission structures, compensation structures, hiring salespeople, forecasting, all the things. So I've been that guy that's like knocking on doors and cold calling. And then I've also been the guy that's overseeing organizations, sales teams, and forecasting and all that kind of stuff. And then in 2006, I went and transitioned from sales into professional coaching as an executive sales coach. And I still sell. I still have to sell. It's the only way I can get clients, right? And so I've always come from this non-traditional place of selling. So when we think salesperson, when I think salesperson, the first thing that comes to mind is the used car sales guy.
Yeah.
Hey, so Molly, what's it going to take to make this deal? You want to drive off the lot today with that brand new car, don't you? So that comes to my mind. And why is it that when we go to a car dealership, it's at least like a 6-hour
Oh my
deal?
God.
It's
Yeah.
insane. And then when you leave, you feel like you need to take a shower because something happened to you because they're so pushy and aggressive. And so when we think salesperson, that's usually what we think. That's what comes to mind. And then as a result, especially attorneys that are listening or watching to this, they don't ever want to be perceived as a
Mm-mm.
salesperson. And I've always come from a non-traditional place of selling. I don't do features and benefits. No features and benefits selling. No
Love
overcoming
that.
stalls and objections. That's traditional selling. And as far as I'm concerned, those are amateur salespeople. Anybody out there today that's using features and benefits or overcoming stalls and objections to sell is an amateur salesperson. It's traditional. And we know their tactics and their techniques better than they do a lot of the time. When somebody says, hey, Molly, it's Friday, you better sign up today because the price goes up on Monday, we go, bah, what did you
Yes.
just say? I've known that for years. What are you doing? Are you serious right now? I've never come from that place. I always put the prospect first. It's not about me. It's about asking curious questions, practicing active listening to try to figure out whether or not I can actually help them. If I can't help a prospect, I'll be the first one to tell them no. I'll say, sorry, I'm just not a good fit for you. And I might have a recommendation for them to somewhere else that they can go to get what they need. But I'm all about ethical selling. I'm a huge advocate for ethical selling. No sneakiness, no sliminess, no features and benefit selling, no overcoming stalls and objections. And I'm going to throw this one out there. And I know you're going to go, what? But I also teach never close. You've heard coffees for closers. Hey, put that coffee down. You haven't closed anything this month. Coffees for closers. Or ABC, always be closing. No, nope. It's gross. Don't close. There's a way that you can have a conversation with a prospective client that you can put them in a position to buy from you without feeling like they're being sold. That's a part of our sales training. But no features and benefit selling, no overcoming stalls and objections, and never close. I've always come from a place of being more of I hate to say it because it's becoming a buzzword, a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
More of a consultative sales approach. If there's not a good fit, that's okay. If there is a good fit, fantastic. But the whole traditional selling, features and benefits and all that grossness, no thanks. And we know that attorneys, they don't want to come across that way. And when you think
No.
salesperson, that's what they think. They're like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be, hey, so are you ready for us to help you with that estate? Hey, are you ready for us to help you with this divorce? Right? Nobody ever wants to come across that way.
Yeah, and you are way too good at the sales guy pitch.
Hey,
You got that down. I'd be like, are you sure you don't do that all day? Because you're pretty good at
that would be so horrible.
it. Talk to me about never be closing, because I have to tell you, I'm guilty of this. I will talk to my attorneys. I'm like, all right, what was the call to action? Did you
Yeah.
close? And a lot of times they come there, you've got everybody's ears now because they love that. Talk
Mhm.
to us about the perspective and the 2 millimeter shift in regards to not being attached to the close and not to be closing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a little part of the secret sauce. So I'm not going to speak to it specifically, but what I
Sure.
can tell you is that it really is important to put the prospect first, the PNC. You have to put the PNC first. It's not about you. It's not about how smart you are. Nobody cares. No, but attorneys that are watching this, Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about how smart you are. When you're sitting across from a PNC, it is not where you got your law degree. It's not about how many cases that are just like theirs that you've worked on and won in the past. They don't care. When you're in a consult with a PNC, they want to share their story. And we've got to ask curious questions and practice active listening to draw out of them what it is that they really want. Actually, Molly, I can lay it out for you like a high level. I can lay out like a 30,000 foot view of the sales conversation that we train attorneys and others on. Yeah. So there's actually 5 steps to the sales conversation. So if you can imagine, here we are, we're sitting across from a PNC. Our intake specialist already spoke with them and they got the consultation scheduled for us. So here I am, I'm an attorney, I'm sitting across from the PNC. Maybe we're on Zoom, maybe everybody's had their vaccine and we're sitting in front of each other in person, but here we are. The first thing that we want to do is set an agenda, an oral agenda for our meeting. If we're going to be with this PNC for 45 minutes or an hour, we need to set an agenda for that meeting so that everybody understands why we're there. And let them know, hey, what we're going to do today, I want to learn about what's going on in your life, what brought you in. If you end up retaining us, I want to talk about what that would look like for you. I'm happy to share with you about our firm and answer any questions that you have. And then when we're done with our meeting, let's make sure that one of 2 things happens. So we either don't see that we have a fit and we go our separate ways, or we see that we have a fit and we look at the next steps to working together. So everybody's on the same page out of the gate in the beginning of the meeting. You set an agenda. And then we go into what we call a needs assessment to learn about what it is that they're there for. And this is the piece where the attorney really needs to listen. And we know that we make decisions, buyers, we're all buyers. We as buyers make decisions intellectually, but we buy based on emotion. Yeah. So when we're in this needs assessment piece of the consult, we're drawing out of them what's going on. Why are they here? How did they get into this place? What is it that we can potentially help them with? And more than likely, we'll start to see them get emotional around those reasons and let them talk. It's the them show. It's not the you show, right? Mm-hmm. So let them talk and let them share and let them start to get emotional. So we set an agenda. Then we go into our needs assessment to find out like what's happening. Then check this out. We're going to talk about money right here. We're not going to wait until the end. We're not going to wait until the end of our consult to talk about money. This is where you're going to lay out for them how much your retainer is, if you do a retainer, what your flat fees are, and you need to get them to agree. Yep, I can do that. Not only can they pay the retainer, but let's get clear on the fact that they understand that their case may very well cost more than the initial retainer, and they need to have the resources to see their case to the end. So we want to get clear on that in the money step. Could you imagine if you're an attorney and you're working on a case and all of a sudden your client runs out of money? Guess what? Yeah. That judge more than likely is not going to let you back out of that case. The judge is going to be like, nope, you're sticking with them. You took them on as a client. And now all of a sudden you've got this accounts receivable that becomes unmanageable. So we want to get clear in the money step on the fact that they've got the money to afford the retainer or the flat fee, and they can see the case to the end resource wise. So agenda, needs assessment, money. Then I want to make sure I'm in front of all the decision makers. So I clarify, I want to be clear. Anybody besides you involved in making this decision if you decide to retain the firm? So agenda, needs assessment, money, decision makers. And then we have a presentation step. In the presentation step, that's where we lay out for them what it is that the firm can do for them and a little bit about how we do it. Right. Nobody wants to know how the sausage is made. They don't care. Well, we're going to file this petition on form 2218, and then we're going to do, no, they don't care. But you're generally speaking going to lay out for them what it's going to look like when they work with the firm, how you're going to help them, and a little bit about how you're going to go about doing that. So that is your consultation. Set an agenda, ask curious questions and practice active listening to find out what their needs are. Get clear on money. Don't say, talk about an amateur salesperson. Amateur salespeople, this is what they do. They sweat, they talk, they die, they put their presentation up or the whiteboard, and they just do this for an hour. And then they're working hard. They feel like they got the person excited with all their features and benefits, and they get to the end and they go, and it'll be $14,995. And the prospect goes, oh, yeah, I don't have that much. And then the salesperson's just like, oh, they just worked so hard for nothing. Agenda, needs assessment. Let's talk about the money here. Before we talk to them about how we do what we do, let's talk about it in the middle of the conversation, especially if they just got emotional around the needs that they talked to you about, right? So agenda, needs assessment, money, then decision makers, then presentation. That's what we learn to do in the smart systematic selling sales conversation.
And what I love about that is, guess what? You don't even need an attorney to do that meeting.
That's
And
right.
nothing did I hear about strategy, like you said, a tiny glimmer in step 5. Most, the greatest analogy I heard about attorneys doing consultations is that person walks, we'll use a car lot again. The person walks on the car lot and the only thing they care about are rock and Bose speakers. And you lift up the hood and you talk about spark plugs.
That's right.
And that's how most attorneys show up in the conference room. And what I love about what you said is that that almost does a massive disservice of a person connecting with you, because call it close, call it engagement, call it what have you, they're connected. And talk to me just really quickly, and then I want you to move into telling us about debunking this myth of, well, you don't understand my law practice, or attorneys are selling legal services is very, very different than selling widgets on Amazon. But so number 3, you're at step 3, you're talking about money, up there, and the client either has a deer in the headlights, they pass out, or that's a flat out, no, I don't have the money. How do you handle that?
Yeah. Oh gosh, if they don't, okay. Again, I come from a non-traditional place when it comes to sales. So if I find out that a prospect doesn't have the money for my product or service, then I'm not going to say, well, hey, do you think you could talk to a family member or a friend and see if do you have a credit card you might be able to put that on? Or no, sorry, that's gross. That's gross. Whenever a PNC or a prospect, they're one and the same, right? I'm using interchangeable language, especially when it comes to legal, right? So if a PNC at any time gets even a whiff of you trying to sell them, they put up the walls to defend themselves. And if you're sitting there talking about money and you come to find out that they don't have the money, don't push them. If you try to, well, hey, so can you put that on a credit card or maybe stop smoking? Do you know how much you could save if you stop smoking? You could bring that stereo down to the pawn shop. Anytime you do something like that, they realize that you're not looking out for their best interests. Now you're focusing the conversation on yourself under the guise of helping them figure out where they can come up with the money. They're not stupid. Buyers aren't stupid. As soon as you tell me that I should pawn my stereo at the pawn shop, I realize that you're just trying to figure out how to get paid and you no longer care about me. Even if you say you do, it's not coming across that way. The energy is completely off. So if I'm in the money step and they say, oh, like let's say it's a $5,000 retainer and we're in the money step, $5,000 retainer for your case. And they go, oh, I don't have $5,000. Okay, well, that's okay. How much are you short? Well, I didn't know it was going to cost that much. I've only got like $2,000. Okay, $2,000 is a great start. Do you have any other resources available to you that you might be able to tap into? Well, and then I let them answer. That's as far as I go. I'll ask, do you have any other resources you might be able to tap into? And then I stop talking. And here's something, silence. You hear silence is powerful. I do sales training all the time. And I love public speaking. One of the things that I learned is when you're facilitating groups or trainings and stuff like that, when you ask a question, after you ask the question, count to 10 to yourself. So if I ask them in the money step, well, do you have any resources that you could, tap into? 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. I count in my head, because then they're going to start to think about it. And that silence is so powerful. They may have some resources that they can tap into. In fact, more often than not, they do. But what if they don't? If they don't have the money to afford to work with your firm, they are disqualified. That's it. You tell them no, and you move on.
Oh, how freeing is that right there? Because I'd love what even you say, they are disqualified. You tell them no. So often in the sales process, initial consultations, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
you are, like you said, sweating, holding your breath, all that. But when you get that they are being really clear and truthful and honest with you, and
Yeah.
then you get to be right there, have that line of delineation, be like, okay, it's no or not now, but
Yep.
being really clear and disqualifying that and taking that off versus so many people will do payment plans. They will in some
Yep.
circumstances, depending on your area of law and your
Yeah.
business model and what have you, not saying that, but often they'll even do the payment plans without asking that clarifying question first and foremost, and to your
Yep.
point, get in trouble halfway or a third way in.
Yep. We make a lot of assumptions. And that's something else we teach people in the sales training, is to not assume, and don't answer an unasked question. What I mean is, we also do intake training now, and we can talk about that later. But we were doing follow-up intake training just this week, and it was really interesting listening to one of the students practice, because they shared that there's a $200 fee for the consultation. And he goes, okay, and if you decide to move forward, we do charge $200 to meet with the attorney for that consultation. I'm happy to take a debit or credit card for that today. And if you can't afford the full amount, I'd be happy to take a partial payment. And I was like, stop. What did you just do? No, dummy. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Now stop talking and wait for them to respond. Don't answer an unasked question. If they didn't ask, can I pay part now and pay later, part later, don't say that you offer it. Right? So
Yes.
Don't answer an unasked question. Let that silence sit and let the PNC figure it out. And if they can't figure it out, again, when it comes to money, if they can't figure it out, they're disqualified. And one more thing on this, because I know a lot of attorneys that I've worked with in the sales training, 25 plus in the last 12 months, attorneys are analytical. They come from this very stoic, it's like they're channeling their inner Spock. Most of the attorneys are very analytical. And one thing I explained to them is, in the needs assessment step, it's really important to get the PNC emotional, because we buy on emotion. If you can't get them emotional, you're probably not going to get them as a client. And for attorneys, that's really difficult. Well, what do you mean, Theophan? Because according to subsection 2 of statute 37, no. You've got to have a bigger conversation with them. It's not just about fact. It's about illogical emotion and how they're feeling about whatever's going on in their life. If you get them emotional in that needs assessment step, the money step is right after that. If we're in pain emotionally, it's a fact. We will pay whatever it takes to make the pain go away. So instead of being analytical about your approach to the consultation, you've got to be conversational and allow your PNC to get emotional. And I've talked to attorneys that they're just like, I just don't want to hear it. I already know what they need. I know how to help them. I don't want to hear it. Can't I just tell them, this is my retainer, we can help you? And I explain to those attorneys, I'm like, yeah, you could do that if you don't want to get them as a client.
Wow. As you were talking and get them emotional, I think and I know I want you to move on and tell us a little bit more about just what you hear of the objections of why you can't sell in legal services and the difference
Mhm.
between legal and non-legal. But what I love about that is typically your intake coordinators, your people that are answering the phones, they lead with woo, win people over. They know how to get emotional. And
Yeah.
so two parts really pop into my mind. Number one, if you, as the counselor, trusted advisor, attorney, if you can't get emotional, they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to get emotional. We all know vulnerability connects and sells, but also for your team, when you go back to that intake coordinator and them role playing,
Mhm.
I think this is phenomenal to start with your receptionist, your intake coordinators, whatever you call them, whatever term resonates with you, because
Yeah.
it's almost they're okay with the emotions. Step
Mhm.
two, they're not okay with money. So they overtalk. So,
Right. Right.
and the attorneys are typically okay with the money piece. They're just not okay with the emotional piece. So I think this would be a phenomenal program for your sales force, i.e. your receptionist, i.e. your director of first impressions, to go
Yeah.
through to train them. Because I bet you if you ask them, how comfortable are you with quoting? I know this because the firms that I coach, like, Susie, how comfortable are you with, do you believe in that fee that you charge for that initial consultation? She's like, no,
Mhm.
I hate it. No, I don't
Mhm.
know why anyone would pay an attorney for that when they can get it down the street. I see the commercials, free consultation. I'm like, oh,
Absolutely.
bingo, have the
And those
you got to train this person.
and those tire kickers can go to those free attorneys all day long.
Yep.
Even as a professional coach, when I first started out, I was doing free consultations. And then I got tired of people kicking the tires. So I started charging for my coaching consultation fee. I started at $97. Guess what? People still paid and became clients. Then I went, changed it to 197. People still paid and became clients. And then I went, how about 297? People still paid and became clients. And what I found is people that were just curious about what a coach does or thought they could get like a super impactful little consultation that would change their life, those people went away because they want all
Oh,
those people want freebies. And then when I got to 297, all those folks went away. Now, whenever somebody comes to me at a 297 consultation fee, they become a client, period. It just it just happens. They just become a client. So if an attorney is charging for their consultation fee, they're going to find they may have fewer consultations, but more of those consultations become clients. Let
yes.
those tire kickers that want free consultations go down the road.
I
Yeah.
love that. How
Yeah.
powerful,
Yeah.
unapologetic. And that's okay. Because the second you get the no's out of the way, you open up space for the yeses.
Right. Well, and so this is what happened. Intellectual property. These attorneys, are you kidding me? So they've got their bachelor degree and then they go on and get a graduate degree. They go to law school, then they have to pass the stinking bar. Are you kidding me? The amount of money that attorneys spend for their schooling, and then they got to go through the grueling bar exam only to do free
Oh,
consultations and give away their intellectual property. Are you kidding me? That's unacceptable in my mind. But I'm not an
agreed.
attorney. But I'm not an attorney.
Agreed. Yeah. Well,
And yeah,
it's unacceptable in their mind too, but my greatest definition, if you listen to my podcast, you hear me say this all the time. The greatest definition of resentment I ever heard was self-abandonment. So
mm,
then you're resenting that you got this free tire kicker, whether they are or not, but you have in your mind they are, and you're responsible for the energy you bring in the room and leave in the room. And
mhm,
so when you walk into that room and you're already resenting that you gotta spend an hour, some people are doing 90-minute consultations for freaking free. And
yeah,
so then you're bringing that energy in there and you're resenting it versus if they paid for it, how you show up is going to be vastly different, right?
yep, yeah. And there's no reason to give away your intellectual property. You paid a lot of money for that information. Why are you just
Yes.
going to give it away? I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're running a 30, 40, $50 million a year law firm, sure, donate some of your time. Absolutely. But if you're trying to get off the ground, or if you're trying to establish yourself, if you're trying to grow, oh, you got to stop that. Knock it off. Your intellectual property is worth money. Yeah, that's my personal opinion. So check
I
this out.
agree.
I hear you're talking about intake people, you're talking about the salespeople, and we mentioned earlier non-attorney salespeople. So this is becoming, what I'm seeing more and more is becoming a thing amongst law offices. And again, I've worked with 25 plus firms in the last 12 months. Some of them that are still smaller, like it's a solopreneur law firm, and maybe they have a paralegal or an intake person. They're doing all their consultations on their own. But as firms are starting to scale, they're starting to move to a non-attorney salesperson model. So it will go, this is the funnel. So marketing, however you've got your marketing set up, and I'm not a marketing guy. I'm first to admit, biggest deficiency is marketing, but you get me in front of a prospect and it's on. So I don't do marketing, but the funnel looks like marketing brings the leads in. Intake is your first line. They're the one, good afternoon, Hughes Thorson, Scans, Powell, and Brundine. How can I help you? Right? They're the ones answering the phone. Oh, hey, I need to get rid of my wife. She cheated on me again. I need to talk to somebody about a divorce and I don't want to pay alimony, right? Or whatever. Oh, hey, you've called the right place, right? So intake is that first line. They're taking those calls. And then intake will take their intake info, all those questions they ask, and then schedule the meeting with the non-attorney salesperson. The non-attorney salesperson, based on part of our training, and I've trained non-attorney salespeople. Some law firms we work with don't have non-attorney salespeople. They're still doing all their own sales meetings, but we've trained both. We've trained non-attorney salespeople and salespeople on the sales training. But what it goes, intake, non-attorney salesperson to attorney, or intake to attorney, right?
Yep.
And so it's really interesting because as we've been doing this training with law offices, it's crazy because they'll bring their whole staff in. So we do, so the smart systematic selling, by the way, we do have a video boot camp training that people can sign up for on our website. I think almost every law firm that we've worked with has done the private training with us. So instead of just watching videos, they come to us and do 6 90-minute live sessions. It's once a week for 6 weeks. They get 90 minutes with us. We take them through the training in each session, and then we do a little bit of role playing, which everybody's uncomfortable with, but it's amazing. It's a great way to learn. But after they do 6 90-minute live sessions with us, then we'll usually do like 2 additional role playing sessions so they can continue to practice what they learned. And then Molly, after that, they will come into ongoing practice with our other students. And so smart systematic selling, S3 for short, is the boot camp. And then we have the S3 dojo, which is everything's on Zoom. If you want to pay for me to come to your office and train your people live, we could talk about that. But the private training, we do that live on Zoom, the boot camp. And then when students finish the boot camp, then they come into what we call the S3 dojo to practice what they learned with other students. And in the dojo, I have a martial arts background. Have you ever done any martial arts?
No, but I'm familiar with the terminology.
Yeah, so you've got the dojo, you come in, you're wearing your gi, and the instructor's in the front, and they'll do an overview of a technique, punching, kicking, blocking, whatever. And then you pair up with another student and you practice. Well, that's what we do in our dojo. When a student comes from the boot camp into the dojo, in a 1-hour dojo, we'll do an overview, we'll do a demonstration of one of the techniques or one of the steps in the selling system, and then students get to practice with other students. And the goal is to get about 40 minutes of role playing in every 1-hour dojo. But Molly, the dojo is like several days a week, different times, West Coast, East Coast. We've got students in the UK, we've got students in Australia. So we try to get our scheduled times so that it works for just about anybody. But in the dojo, we also have something called a belt system. So when you finish the boot camp and you come into the dojo, you come in as a white belt. And then with time and practice, you can test for your yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, brown, and black belts. We've got a law office on the East Coast. She's the owner of the law firm. She's about to test for her blue belt.
Oh, wow.
And she's got her non-attorney salesperson in there, and he's belt testing as well. So the law firms, they'll come in and go through the boot camp, and then they'll come into the dojo and practice. Not all the attorneys do. A lot of them do, but not all of them do. Sometimes they'll just have their non-attorney salespeople or whoever come in. So in all this time, in the last year that we've been doing work with law offices, I find that they bring in, so for example, there's a law office I'm working with right now. It's the principal of the firm and 3 other attorneys, and then 3 other attorneys. And then he's got support staff. Yeah, there's 5 support staff and 4 attorneys. So there's 9 people in the training. Everybody is in the private boot camp. They're all learning the entire sales conversation. And I told him, I was like, hey, your intake person is not going to need the entire sales conversation. Your paralegal is not going to need the entire sales conversation because they're not going to do selling, right? But he wants them to understand. And he's a law firm that's not using non-attorney salespeople. The 4 attorneys are the ones that are doing the consultations, which is fine. And he's not interested in the non-attorney salesperson. Totally fine. But my point is, I have law offices that bring in all their intake people and all these other additional people. And then we realized about 4 or 5 months ago, we were like, we need to develop a training for the intake professional. So we created S3 Intake for Law Firms Workshop, where we've taken pieces and parts of the sales training and put it into the intake conversation. So now we're training attorneys on how to sell. We're training non-attorney salespeople how to sell, and we're training the intake professionals on how to take those calls in a very professional, confident manner and get more consultations scheduled.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So needed in the legal space. Absolutely. That's phenomenal. That's the biggest break. Most law firms that I talk to do not have that non-attorney salesperson just yet. They're toying with the idea, but they, by golly, have a superstar sitting at the front desk, waiting for, and when you even propose the opportunity to them, be like, yes, please, because he cannot be closing because he's ruining it.
Yep. Molly, we had a law firm a couple of months ago that came through the training. She's so funny. It was her, and then she brought her 3 intake people, So there are 4 people in there. And when she came in, she was like, yeah, I don't know about the non-attorney salesperson thing, but she wanted her whole team to be aware and familiar with the training. And by the time we got to the end, she says, hey, Theophan, I think so-and-so would make a good non-attorney salesperson. What do you think? And I was like, I absolutely agree. And then Molly, she had that person start doing her sales meetings, her consults for her. And now she's just like, this is beautiful. I'm at the courthouse. I'm at the courthouse filing something. I know that sales meetings are happening. Yeah. I'm in court for a hearing, and I know sales meetings are happening. She says, this is beautiful. I don't have to think about it anymore. My practice is growing even when I'm not there. Here's the thought. And I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, because I don't see attorneys as bartenders, but just follow me. Years ago, I used to work as a barback at a bar I'm in Portland, Oregon. I worked in a bar as just running around years ago. I was the barback. So my job, there were 3 bars within this big bar. My job was to go from bar to bar to bar, these 3 internal bars, and fill the fruit, make sure the kegs were full, make sure the glasses were washed. My job was to make sure that the bartender just did this.
Yeah.
Because that's where the money is made. Yeah. When the bartender's pouring drinks. If they had to do their own dishes or fill their own fruit, the bar is losing money. Law firms, the attorneys are the ones making money for the law firm. The more billable hours an attorney can get, the more money the law firm generates. So instead of the attorneys doing the consults, why not have a non-attorney salesperson do it so the bartender can continue getting those billable hours?
Yeah. And I love that because my dad used to own an Irish pub and I was the bartender. My brother was the barback.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
fire him because I had to go get my own ice and he sucked. But
See? There it is. Yeah. Yeah.
but I love that because and here's the permission to just let go and try it. That is not a legal meeting.
Right.
The initial consultation is not illegal. And in fact, you and I both know this, Theophan. Like we know this to our core.
Yeah.
The conversion rates from a non-attorney salesperson, call it whatever you want. They're not
Yeah.
an attorney because it's
Yep.
the highest use of their skill set, their knowledge, their intellectual property,
Yeah.
and their conversion rates are higher.
Yeah.
Don't you
Absolutely.
see that?
I do. I absolutely do see that. And the non-attorney, I just, it frees up the time for the attorney to do what they do best. And to your point, in that consult, they should not be giving legal advice.
No.
When I do coaching consultations, I don't coach. I take them through smart systematic selling. I set an agenda, do a needs assessment, money, decision makers presentation. I don't do any coaching in a coaching consultation. Non-attorney salespeople don't give legal advice in a consultation. Attorneys should not be giving legal advice, giving up their IP in a legal consult. And I know that people that watch this will go, well, then what the heck am I doing in a consult? I can show you.
Exactly.
I can
Yeah.
show you. And then when you come through this, if you come through this, you'll be like, oh, I get it. This makes so much sense. And then all of a sudden it makes sense as to why an attorney could have a non-attorney salesperson as well.
Yeah, and they value their meeting with the attorney so much more. I do the same thing so often when I'll do consultations for if I'm going to take on a new coaching client. I do not coach in that meeting. However, the experience of, again, speaking to people's listening in a way that makes a difference for them. How it always ends, I'll say, okay, in debrief, tell me what you're taking away. And number one answer I always get is, thank you so much for this coaching session. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't coach, but they thought that they got it because of your process, because
Yep.
of a process like that. When it's a human to human conversation where you are connecting with them. I love that. So tell us, because I know you have an open hours to run to,
I
right?
do.
Aren't
Open
you?
office hours. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and you're going to go coach your law firms and your clients. Talk to us a little bit about how people can connect with you and learn more about when they're, and I highly recommend that you all really take this. No mistake that you got 25 law firms in the past 12 months when people went to virtual and during a pandemic, because they're saying, we got to get serious about running this law firm like a business or else we're going to die on the vine.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. www.s3.training.
Easy
That's
enough.
our website address, or hello@s3.training if you want to email us. But yeah, if you go to our website, www.s3.training, there's information about the programs and stuff like that. There's information about the video bootcamp training. And today I was talking about that, but I was also talking about the private one-on-one training. So for those that are interested, just reach out. We'd be happy to meet with you and chat. And just like I said earlier, if we do sit down and have a conversation and we don't feel like we can help you, we will let you know.
Yes, you can guarantee that. Oh,
Right.
well, thank you. I will put the links in the show notes. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll also put all your social handles because I think people absolutely should connect with you on social. You are such a value creator. You are just pouring into the legal community. I, for one, am very, very grateful that I found you because the conversation is necessary and needed in the legal space.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah. Okay. Get going. You got to get to class.
Yep. Gotta go.
All right.
Thank you, Molly.
All right.